Good morning. It's the fifth Sunday of Lent for us. I invite you to take a couple breaths this morning to settle in to this place where you are, the space where you are, to allow yourself to fully inhabit your soul body here and now. It can take us a while to settle in. Our minds are busy, our hearts are busy, our bodies may be agitated, maybe they feel calm, however they feel. The breath is our way of welcoming all that we are into this moment, honoring all that we are in this moment, not having to change it. Inviting our heart to touch it, all the different aspects of ourselves as we breathe. And the breath is a welcome. It's been a full week with the COVID-19, with our physical distancing from one another. For me, it feels a little disjointed at times, on different levels, emotionally, routine. Not being close, physically close, near those we love, perhaps, and those who are suffering so much with uncertainty with their own health, those who have lost loved ones to death and cannot be there to, at least physically, to hold them and care for them in this time, for those who weep, for those who are in kind of a valley of bones, dry bones in this period. We gather them and hold them in the presence of Holy Mystery. So let us begin this morning's liturgy, our time together, being in the presence of the one who is love and the one who is compassion. The Lord is with you. Let us pray together. God of the desert, your word is life. When we cry, our bones are dry. When we lament, our hope is gone. Be now our strength to take away the stone of doubt. Be now the word that reaches out into the grave of our heart and calls forth new life. Amen. Two of the readings we have for this Sunday, at least for me, are quite powerful. The first is a story of Ezekiel, where the Spirit of God drops Ezekiel down into this valley of bones, drops his soul, his heart, his presence into this valley of bones, bones that are disconnected, bones that are disjointed, bones that are strewn about. No sinews, no tendons, no lifeblood. Bones scattered, not kept together whole. He's in this valley where the spreading of bones has destroyed history, personal history, personal story. It's a place of lostness. And that is where the Spirit has settled him, his presence, his awareness, amidst bones. The second story is from John's community, where Jesus has been told as he's going about his ministry that his dear friend, his close friend, Lazarus, is quite ill, is dying. Jesus hears the report, but he continues on with his work, his ministry. And it sounds like many of us, when we hear something, we may not let it settle completely upon us, and we keep about the work, the busyness, the to-doingness of our daily life. But eventually he turns with the prompting of the Spirit, we might say, and finds himself at the threshold of Lazarus and his sisters. And one says it's too late, Lazarus has died. And the story goes on to describe Jesus as being disturbed. His heart is touched. Now it's more than touched, it's rocked. And he begins to weep for the loss of someone who was so dear to him. And perhaps the weeping is also that he was not there when his friend passed away. And he was not there to be with those who are weeping as well. And in the presence of Lazarus' bones, he weeps. That's all there is to do. Sometimes is to weep. What moves me in both these stories, Ezekiel in the Valley of Bones and Jesus before the bones of Lazarus, is that neither one of them averts their gaze, neither one of them rejects what's going on. There's not blaming, there's not casting aspersion. They have this capacity to simply and significantly be with what has been brought before them. And their response, it's similar for Ezekiel and Jesus. In their own ways, they converse with the bones that are in their presence, the bones that surround them, the bones that press upon their hearts. And they converse. They converse in different ways, as we all do when we are in the presence of something that touches our heart with grief, bewilderment, such sadness. The conversation of Ezekiel is one of prophesying, talking to the bones, inviting them to new life. And the conversation of Jesus is, well, it's simply weeping, and then he will talk to Lazarus about new life. And what I'm struck by with both Jesus and Ezekiel is this capacity simply to be with what life is confronting them with. At the threshold of their heart is loss. And that quality that it is in both Jesus and Ezekiel, as I see it, is one of courage. But it's not the courage that I was taught as a little boy growing up in southeastern Michigan by the westerns that I would watch and the comic books that I would read. The heroes that were presented to me. That courage was one of trying to cajole reality, trying to command reality, trying to be in control of it, trying really to bend reality to our will. There is no bending here. There is no cajoling. It is a conversation. It is a willingness to be with where they find themselves. There's a trust, even in the midst of bones, even in the midst of loss, disjointedness. And so I ask, what is courage for you and for me? Courage of the soul, spiritually, what is that capacity? And I've written some verse that I'd like to share with you from my reflections on what is courage. When fear would shut us down cold, courage is breathing. When averting the heart would seem the safe refuge, courage is attending. When unleashing revenge would seem to extinguish the throbbing rage, courage is understanding. When casting aspersion would seem to satiate that compulsion to judge, courage is appreciating. When incessant recreating would seem to soothe that driving itch to do. Courage is resting. When assaulting the unfamiliar would seem to assuage the aching tribal hunger, courage is accepting. When renouncing our own shadows would seem to be the proven path of survival, courage is receiving. Courage, I am discovering, is the soul's trusting, tender touch upon the guest who has arrived before the heart. So the soul's trusting, tender touch upon the guest who has arrived before the heart. I invite you to discover, bit by bit, that trusting, tender touch upon the guest who is arriving before your heart. Whatever it is, sadness, weeping, happiness, bewilderment, rage, anger, sorrow. Courage to accept that guest, to touch that guest, to be with that guest, to rest with that guest, to learn, to be curious. That's courage. Not acting on our instincts, but being with them. Being with whatever guest happens to arise before us. And discovering that being with that guest who touches our heart, that being will reveal to us what we need to do next. I pray for you a courageous heart. Let us continue with the prayers for the people for today. For hearts that search in love for truth, may the gospel dispel the shadows and lighten our way. Let us pray. For lives that embody a peace the world longs to know, let us pray. For society where wisdom guides our stewardship of creation, let us pray. For a community where all are valued as the presence of Christ, especially those of us who suffer from poverty, persecution, imprisonment, homelessness. Remembering in particular Carter, John, and Jesse, Larry, Sam, and whoever you remember this moment. Let us pray. For all who love God by whatever name, that our hearts may be entrusted to the forgiving way of Christ, that feudal divisions may cease, and that all may be one as God is one. Let us pray. For all who have died, especially this week from COVID-19, may we be grateful that they rest from their labors as you rest gracefully in them. Let us pray. For lives imbued with a spirit of joyful thanksgiving, let us pray. Rejoicing in the holy company of Stephen and all the saints, let us pray. For yours is the majesty, O beloved. Yours is the power and the glory that is boundless love, now and forever. Amen. In the Spirit of Christ, we are bold to say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, now and forever. Amen. The wisdom of God, the love of God, and the grace of God strengthen us to be Christ's hands and heart in this world. Amen. May this be a good day for you, a courageous day. Amen.